I will be reading chapters 331 to 335 from the novel Genius Warlock by Yellow Coffee. If you enjoy this audiobook, please consider liking and subscribing to my channel and clicking the bell icon to receive notifications for future updates. Let's begin. Chapter 331. Shrouded within a clinging, viscous crimson blaze, Oliver surged forward directly at the blood mage, an adept of the blood magic school. One might argue that fortune favored him on this occasion. The blood mage's mastery of blood magic happened to be at a threshold where Oliver could seize dominion over it. Through his numerous clashes with Derek, Oliver had gleaned the art of manipulating fire magic adeptly, thus enabling him to harness the crimson flames upon his own form. To put it differently, his prior experiences had furnished him with the tools for swift reactions in the present. Truly, what a fortunate advantage that proved to be. This can't be happening. Conversely, caught off guard by this unexpected reaction, the blood mage was momentarily startled, promptly conjuring wings of blood to swiftly retreat. In rapid succession, he summoned a blood-infused orb, small yet brimming with droplets, rupturing it to access a copious reserve of the vital fluid. Blood Blade. With the freshly acquired blood securely in his grasp, the blood mage infused it with both mana and will, giving rise to innumerable bat-shaped blades that hurtled forth. This was a blood magic technique that had once been wielded by Bathory. If Oliver's recollection served him faithfully, it was an immensely potent maneuver. The might of these blades transcended mere quantity, their strength was so considerable that they could pierce even the black suit, which had been enhanced with artificial souls. Taking into account the blood mage's proficiency falling short of Bathory's, the attack remained an imposing force, particularly within the confines of this narrow space. Thankfully, one crucial difference marked the present circumstances. Oliver himself was adept in the use of blood magic. Whoosh! Oliver channeled the blood flames enveloping his frame onto the blade he clutched and brought it down forcefully against the ground. The flames of crimson hue coalesced upon impact, erecting a fiery barricade akin to a drapery along the confined corridor. In an instant, the incoming barrage of blood blades was consumed by the conflagration, reduced to impotence like cloth soaked in oil. Such an outcome adhered to the inherent attributes of mana. Much like quelling fire magic with either ice or opposing flames, the principle held true. Not only was the blood mage taken aback, but Yareli and the other wizards observing from behind also found themselves astounded by Oliver's adept counteroffensive. The fact that a mere faculty member had outmatched a blood mage employing such an unconventional technique was indeed surprising. This unforeseen turn of events had caught everyone off guard. The formerly self-assured blood mage felt a creeping fear welling within, the unsettling possibility of his defeat looming. Just as with any emotion, this fear rapidly took root within the depths of the blood mage's being. It fed off his anxiety and trepidation, swiftly blossoming into a dominance over his rationality and emotions. The once confident blood mage underwent an immediate shift in demeanor. He directed the levitating blood under his feet to converge, forming a small pool of the crimson fluid. His intention was to escape. However, Oliver, having foreseen this, acted with swifter precision. Blood Ice Flower. Oliver guided his mana through his foot, prompting a reaction with the blood. The outcome was the swift generation of blood-red ice flowers, rapidly encasing the blood mage from his feet up to his neck. The pool of blood he had intended for escape had metamorphosed into a snaring trap. Stunned to silence, the blood mage stared in astonishment at Oliver. This was no surprise, for Oliver had showcased a markedly superior comprehension and aptitude in blood magic compared to the blood mage. Yareli and the other wizards, who had observed from the sidelines, could only gape in amazement. Amidst it all, Oliver, the central figure, remained poised. "It seems I have subdued him," Oliver stated courteously to Yareli. "You, what are you?" questioned the blood mage, ensnared from foot to neck in blood-red ice blossoms, his voice marked by shock. The reaction was entirely natural. Blood magic, a heretical yet potent form of mana that melds emotions with mana through blood, had posed a substantial threat despite the blood mage's version being less advanced than Bathory's. Evidence of this lay in the fact that it had triumphed over Yareli's straightforward ice magic. And yet, it was a mere faculty member who had quelled him through the use of this blood magic. An implausible, unbelievable twist of fate. In that very moment, a thought crossed the mind of the Grand Master. He found himself wondering if Theodore, the Grand Master of the Life School faction, held undisclosed information. Although the Grand Master had explicitly commanded for Kevin, his researchers, and staff to be captured alive, a nagging suspicion arose within him. Could it be that Theodore's true objective wasn't Kevin but rather the staff before him? This doubt soon solidified into conviction, and the Grand Master experienced that distinct unease and apprehension that accompany unexpected deviations. "You. What are you really? A grave Grand Master?" Nonetheless, Oliver, now the focus of the Grand Master's attention, responded with a composed tone that starkly contrasted the Grand Master's demeanor. "I'm Zenon Bright, a personal employee of the Professor. As for blood magic..." Oliver's voice trailed off, his gaze shifting towards Yareli. They both waited for Oliver's explanation. "I happened to learn it when I was fighting Lady Bathory during the Mountain Pace incident." A fabrication that even Oliver found inelegant, yet he had no alternative, he assured himself. Had he not acted swiftly against the Grand Master's blood magic, dire consequences could have unfolded in multiple directions. "Professor Kevin will take care of it somehow." Oliver's thoughts were grounded in his trust in Kevin, who had granted him a measure of autonomy. "No way. Don't lie. You learned blood magic by chance? Do you know how much effort I put into mastering it? What's your real identity? Grand Master, what are you doing right now?" Yareli interjected as a flustered Grand Master struggled to speak. Surprisingly, Yareli appeared curious about Oliver as well, yet she chose to defend him. "Yareli, doesn't that bother you? A person with an unclear identity infiltrating as the Professor's personal employee. You're not one to talk, betraying the tower and setting a trap for the guests you invited to the conference." Yareli stated a simple truth. The vigilant wizard's attention swung back to the Grand Master. In whatever manner it unfolded, it was the Life School faction that had endangered them, with Oliver emerging as their savior. Summing up the situation, Yareli turned her focus back to the Blood Magic School Grand Master. "Let's go back to the previous conversation. Why did you do this? What's this about the opening of heaven and hell and preparing for it? Why did you do all this?" Yareli inquired, her emotions tempered by reason. She aimed to comprehend and address the situation with a logical approach, though she trembled beneath the weight of betrayal. Wizards with visages were treated like experimental subjects or mere objects. Oliver entrusted Yareli with the issue and took a step back to observe. He harbored his own curiosity regarding the Life School faction, yet he sensed that this wasn't the opportune moment to intervene. But he's not answering, Oliver thought, observing the tightly held Grand Master who persisted in silence despite being detained. From the Grand Master's demeanor, it was evident that a mix of bewilderment, anxiety, and fear sealed his lips. These emotions must have been profoundly potent, preventing him from responding. After a prolonged standoff, Oliver speculated that a different approach might yield better results. "Excuse me, Ms. Yareli. May I ask a question as well?" Yareli, who had pressed for answers without much success, hesitated briefly before assenting. Her feelings toward Oliver wavered between suspicion and trust. Despite his own unease, Oliver thanked Yareli for her concession and approached the Blood Magic School Grand Master. "Hello. Blood Magic School Grand Master, if it's all right with you, may I ask your name?" "Why do you need my name?" "I've been taught that it's polite to ask each other's names before starting a conversation." Oliver responded genuinely, though the Grand Master could only register astonishment. Discussing etiquette in such dire circumstances appeared absurd. "Tell me who you are first, and then I'll tell you." "I'm Zenon Bright, a personal employee of the Tower Professor." "If you don't want to share your name, that's fine. Can you answer my question?" The Grand Master lapsed into silence once again, a clear refusal. Yet, that wasn't crucial. Merely from the emotional reaction, Oliver sensed he had gained the information he sought. Having gleaned these foundational details, he could then employ the persuasive method Arthur had mentioned to extract more comprehensive insights. It was something like pulling teeth. "Earlier, you mentioned that heaven and hell will open. Does this have something to do with some sort of apocalypse?" Oliver's unexpected question jolted the Grand Master, both externally and internally. "What apocalypse are you talking about?" Sensing an anomaly, Yareli posed the question, and Oliver offered a vague response. "I don't know the details, as I just heard it in passing. But judging by the Grand Master's reaction, it seems there's something he's concerned about." As Oliver reiterated his inquiry, the Grand Master flinched. Observing this, Oliver proposed an idea. "Ms. Yareli, perhaps we should get the Grand Master out of here first and figure it out later? We've achieved our goal, and there's no need to find out here." It was a logical proposition, met with a nod of agreement from Yareli. Their immediate goal was to escape the sight of danger. "Zenon, could you look after the Grand Master?" Oliver consumed the last of the mana potion in his possession and responded, "Certainly, leave it to me." "I can't allow that." A third voice intruded on their dialogue. Both Oliver and Yareli shifted their attention toward the source of the voice, spotting a rift forming behind the Blood Magic School Grand Master, causing space to twist and distort. From this fractured space emerged Carl, the Life School Grand Master's grandson. "Carl! Thank goodness! Help me!" The Blood Magic School Grand Master, relieved at the sight of an ally, appealed for aid. Yet, Carl, seemingly unperturbed, extended his hand, radiating mana. He wrested command over Oliver's ice mana, then clenched his fist, crushing the Blood Magic School Grand Master's form. Ironically, the Blood Magic School Grand Master, hailing from a sub-school that possessed regenerative capabilities, succumbed to blood expulsion and death. It seems that the regenerative ability unique to blood magic isn't present in this one, Oliver contemplated as he surveyed the lifeless figure. However, a more concerning thought seized his mind: Carl's capabilities. Anticipating Carl's strength due to his lineage, Oliver found this display far exceeding expectations. Without reliance on intermediaries or assistance, Carl had warped the atmosphere, generating a portal. Furthermore, he had seized control of Oliver's ice manipulation without fuss. Oliver felt a twinge of surprise. Divesting control from another was no easy feat using conventional skills. He checked his tendency to be presumptuous, acknowledging that his past encounter with Carl at Motel might have underestimated the latter's proficiency. No, I mustn't be arrogant. I might have misjudged, and Mr. Carl might have improved through training. Oliver harbored regret for his previously condescending stance. Yet, an unsettling sensation lingered. Yareli interjected, her voice cutting through the atmosphere. Weren't you here to save your comrade? I've never had a comrade who couldn't handle his own business and blatantly leaked information. Carl responded confidently, a blend of confidence and arrogance that was not uncommon among Landa's wizards. Yareli, however, appeared to have a different perspective. She conveyed her discomfort and disdain quite plainly, evidently disapproving of Carl's nonchalant disposition and his disregard for his ally. She seemed unwilling to accept Carl's outlook that treated comrades as expendable. Meanwhile, Oliver registered this as typical behavior for a user of life school magic. Yareli resumed speaking. So, you came all this way just to silence someone? It was a sharp query. After all, Carl was the grandson of the life school Grand Master, responsible for a research institute and influential role within the organization. His direct involvement for the sole purpose of silencing someone struck Yareli as odd. I did, but I also have something to check. The suspicion found confirmation. Carl replied, shifting his gaze toward Oliver, a probing, intense stare. You said you are Zenon Bright, personal staff of Kevin. Yes. But you're actually a warlock, right? Dave, the solver from District T. Without preamble, Carl bluntly posed the question. Silence fell upon the scene, all eyes now fixed on Oliver. Chapter 332. But, you're actually a warlock, right? Dave, the solver of District T, Carl inquired abruptly, catching everyone off guard with his question. The surrounding individuals were startled into silence. As the hush was on the verge of intensifying, Oliver brazenly fabricated an unscrupulous falsehood. I'm sorry, but I have no idea what you're talking about. Ironically, Oliver's statement held genuine veracity. Currently, he assumed the identity of Zenon, serving as a personal aide to a professor at the Magic Tower. Yet, his true name remained Oliver. In this instance, he had severed ties with his role as Dave, the solver of District T. Or so he believed. However, Carl, oblivious to Oliver's inner musings, emanated an air of discomfort and vexation. Do you think I'm an idiot? I'm sorry, but I'm not treating you like an idiot. Especially when facing a wizard who uses spatial magic. Let me ask in return, why would you say such a thing? Oliver's query was marked by an air of composure, seemingly stemming from a genuine sense of injustice. A brazen untruth it was, yet paradoxically tinged with authenticity. In truth, he earnestly harbored curiosity about the basis of the suspicion directed towards him. While there had been instances where he inadvertently exuded an aura of suspicion, on the whole, he deemed his performance commendable. Oliver met Carl's gaze, and after a fleeting pause, Carl broke his silence. The handwriting. What about it? The handwriting. Yours and Dave's handwriting are the same. Initially perplexed, Oliver swiftly grasped the crux of Carl's reference. In his role as Zenon, he had submitted a report concerning the Mountain Pace incident to the Life School faction. In the guise of Dave, he had furnished a report detailing the World Tree to the Moirai faction. Although distinct entities, the Life School and Moirai factions operated beneath the overarching banner of the Magic Tower. The precise route remained obscure, yet the report appeared to have somehow migrated to the Life School faction. While uncommon, it wasn't beyond the realm of possibility. Handwriting. It stood as a minuscule yet conclusive piece of evidence. Oliver experienced a twinge of remorse at being exposed, yet he was appreciative of the lesson he had acquired from his blunder. He vowed to exercise greater caution in subsequent endeavors. And that damn look and attitude could be evidence as well. Carl appended, addressing Oliver, who was deeply absorbed in contemplation. Carl's exasperation and irritation were palpable in his speech. However, what troubled him was that this anger did not stem from the typical vexation triggered by encountering a conceited individual. The wellspring of Carl's emotions was a sensation of injustice. A vehement wrath and unease, rooted in a perceived unfairness, accompanied by envy. Oliver remained befuddled by this sentiment. Why would someone with a grandfather as illustrious as the Grand Master of the Life School faction experience a sense of injustice and envy toward him? Look and attitude. The moment I saw your eyes, I was sure it was you. That look, as if you're looking at something insignificant. You had that look at Motel too. Motel. A word that resonated with echoes both ancient and recent. Unbidden, Oliver's reaction surfaced. The visage of a young boy flitted across his mind. The boy who had clung tightly to his powerless hand, weeping and confessing his culpability. Oh, you're reacting. Carl observed, and he was correct. Even amid the haze of fog, the ambush, entrapment within the Life School faction's intrigue, infiltration into the basement, drenched in blood, and combat against a practitioner of blood magic, Oliver had maintained his composure. However, the utterance of Motel had provoked a reaction from him. The quandary lay in Oliver's lack of understanding regarding the source of this reaction. What was it? What could it signify? What reaction am I showing? Failing to ascertain the answer on his own, Oliver directed his query to Carl and the assembled individuals, including Yareli. His comportment exhibited an unusual and unnatural quality. It was as if something non-human was mimicking human behavior. It exuded an eerie disquiet, discomfort, and simultaneously, a sense of pity. Those present could not furnish Oliver with a satisfactory response, leading him to proceed to his next query. What do you mean by attitude, Mr. Carl? Despite the inappropriate context and atmosphere, Oliver repeated the question, this time infused with seriousness akin to that of a researcher investigating. I'm talking about the attitude you're showing right now. Regardless of the surroundings, doing whatever you please. It was the same at that time when you were with that bastard kid. Such audacity to ask for silence, as an intruder. Carl felt both indignation and subdued fury. Yet, Oliver remained unaffected, calmly rectifying Carl's statement. It's Colin. What? His name is Colin, the child you mentioned. Colin. Oliver's correction was delivered with poise. Addressing individuals by their names was a gesture of respect, after all. Oh, right. Colin, I remember. One of the inferior breeds bought for a pittance from garbage worker parents. He was an acceptable piece of trash because he was successful in the experiment, but ultimately a failed piece of trash among trash. Carl taunted, cognizant of Oliver's recollections, prompting Oliver to reach into his pocket. Moments later, Oliver produced a diminutive ring-shaped pillbox. It was an item he had obtained as gratitude for aiding Pinkman Jonathan in the recovery of a coveted auction item for the crime firm. A high-performance elixir equivalent to hundreds of regular potions. A premium creation capable of bestowing vast reservoirs of mana with a single ingestion, though its consumption by an unsuitable individual could yield consequences graver than poison. What is that pill? Carl, who had been engaging in provocative dialogue, ceased speaking and directed his attention to Oliver's altered demeanor and the unfamiliar pill he held. It's a pill. Oliver responded nonchalantly and ingested the pill without hesitation. Gulp. The pill slid down in a single gulp. Simultaneously, Oliver's body became infused with a high-quality mana equivalent to hundreds of standard potions. Tailored for adept wizards, the pill's effects were splendidly exhibited by Oliver. A less skilled practitioner would have succumbed to the mana's overflow, but Oliver promptly stabilized the influx. Yet, it was more than mere stabilization. He absorbed the mana with such subtlety that even accomplished wizards like Yareli and Karl remained oblivious to the process. You may continue speaking. Having concluded his task, Oliver encouraged Karl to proceed. Initially, Karl intended to allude to other children alongside Colin, aiming to rattle Oliver's composure. However, the eerily composed Oliver stymied Karl's intentions, evoking an unfamiliar unease within him. His wizardly pride urged him not to relent, yet his instinct as a sentient being cautioned against proceeding. Pride and instinct waged an internal struggle for dominance. I have a proposal. A proposal. Yes. I'll let go of the people you rescued and the Ice Princess. You follow me. I have something to check with you. Karl's words bore sincerity. While there were concealed elements, the essence of the proposal was earnest. Oliver found himself genuinely intrigued. The assault linked to apocalyptic implications and Karl's vested curiosity in him. It was as though two ostensibly disparate matters were intertwined, like distant puzzle pieces. The quandary lay in Oliver's insufficient acumen to deduce anything substantial from these threads. Pursuing Karl's proposition for answers might offer a path, but, well, he wasn't particularly inclined. I'm curious, what happens if I refuse? I offered to let them out safely, so I should balance it? If you refuse, I'll collapse this basement and make it your grave. Then wouldn't we both be in trouble? I don't mind. It's a bit of a waste, but they're not the main target. Karl gestured toward Yareli and the rescued wizards. It was intriguing indeed. If they weren't the focal point, then a secondary motivation must exist behind this incident. Well, then there's nothing we can do, Oliver remarked. As he spoke, Oliver ingested the pill, subsequently releasing a prodigious reservoir of stored mana, striving to commandeer control over the entire basement. Taken aback by this unexpected maneuver and the immense surge of mana, Karl instinctively released his own mana to counteract Oliver's move. The palpable density of mana pervaded the surroundings. Yareli and the saved wizards were momentarily overpowered by the pressure bearing down on them. Even the walls and ceiling exhibited fractures. Crack. Crunch. A battle for dominance that defied conventional norms. Karl appeared astonished, as if caught off guard by the intensity, and Oliver mirrored the sentiment. While Oliver had anticipated that Karl, the grandson of the Grand Master, would be adept, the extent of his proficiency was unforeseen. In terms of sheer mana, Karl's prowess exceeded that of Kevin, who possessed the capacity to raise an entire forest single-handedly. However, his control ability is lacking, Oliver ruminated internally, gradually wresting command of the mana from Karl. Recognizing his faltering control, Karl augmented the output of his inner mana, seeking to overwhelm Oliver with sheer force. However, his response proved belated. Karl realized too late that he was losing ground, as Oliver slowly seized mastery over the mana. A substantial portion of the mana released by Karl was swiftly appropriated by Oliver, who seamlessly seized the mana Karl subsequently released with delayed realization. Evidently, a discernible contrast in skill emerged. Karl was engulfed in a profound sense of inequity. Despite numerous augmentations to his physique, mana capacity, and mana manipulation following his humiliation at motel, he found himself yet again overpowered. This state of affairs was unjust. Do you think you can escape unscathed just by taking control? Karl erupted in fury, endeavoring to unleash an explosive torrent of mana to obliterate the surroundings. Even a fragment of Oliver's remains would suffice. Observing Karl's intentions, Oliver cemented his dominion over the purloined mana, conceptualized an image, and raised both hands. Suddenly, the basement quivered as if convulsed by an earthquake, and a sensation of ascent permeated the space. Oliver had enshrouded the entirety of the basement with his formidable magic, elevating it to the surface. Boom! The ear-splitting clamor of rending through the earth and ascending reverberated through their auditory senses and physical forms, eventually unveiling the fog-swathed surface. Spectators all around stood flabbergasted by the grandeur of mana on display, one of the most prodigious manifestations within the magic tower. "Thank you for your help," Oliver uttered, channeling mana into his legs to bridge the distance and inclining his form in a bow directed at Karl. Subsequently, he wielded the staff's handle akin to an axe blade, executing a sweeping maneuver toward Karl's flank. It was an endeavor to ensnare and immobilize, resembling the motion of a grappling hook. Yet, capturing Karl proved no simple feat. With astonishing reflexes, he evaded the attack by nimbly stepping backward. The velocity exceeded Oliver's initial anticipation. "Your legs are fascinating," Oliver commented, regarding Karl's lower limbs, an amalgamation of human and beastly attributes. The transformation was reminiscent of the wizard he had encountered at motel. "That's not the only thing you'll find fascinating," Karl retorted. Employing one hand, he harnessed mana, and with the other, he extracted his own emotions. Fusing both elements within clasped palms, he harmonized the energies into a singular force. Karl's assertion held true. The spectacle was captivating and intriguing enough to spark curiosity. "How do you Thunderbolt?" Instead of offering explanation, Karl unleashed a bolt of lightning charged with his ire. The obsidian lightning, saturated with direct malevolence aimed at Oliver, hurtled toward its target. Who? Kevin, who had been stationed upon terrain that had transitioned from a hill just minutes earlier, inhaled heavily, struggling for breath. Across from him stood a rejuvenated Theodore. Truly remarkable. Test Subject 162. Chapter 333. Test Subject 162. It had been an extensive duration since Kevin last encountered that phrase. Notwithstanding the passage of time, the term remained etched in his consciousness, akin to an indelible scar. It bore no relevance to Kevin's volition. "When Merlin first said he would take you with him, I thought he was crazy. Sometimes, that happens. Archiving leads to insanity. People cry all day, go mad, and even commit suicide. I also thought Merlin was one of those. To take an experimental rat and raise it as a disciple. But it wasn't like that. To turn an experimental rat into a wizard of this caliber. It's truly amazing. It makes me jealous." Surprisingly, despite the adversity he had faced, Theodore extended his acknowledgement to Kevin. To be more precise, he acknowledged Merlin's influence on Kevin's growth. The sole adversary Theodore recognized as a Grand Master. As Theodore observed Tilda, who bore a bleeding eye, Philip, fiercely battling with a lost arm, and Terence, expending spells recklessly and depleting his energy, he re-engaged with Kevin. "What training did you receive?" Test Subject 162. "While you explain, let me catch my breath." In essence, Theodore indicated his willingness to spare Kevin if he divulged information. This was a self-assured stance to adopt, especially in the face of the honorary Grand Master and one Master, the seasoned war wizard and the Magic Tower's master. The dilemma lied in Theodore's entitlement to such confidence. Even amidst the raging skirmish that left the Hilltop Hotel in ruins, Theodore remained unyielding. In fact, employing life magic to restore a youthful appearance, he maintained dominance. Kevin and Terence, Philip, and Tilda. The absence of any of these four would have posed a perilous predicament. Kevin, who had remained silent in response to Theodore's earlier words throughout the conflict, finally replied. "It's nothing special. I just received standard training." "Is that so?" "Yes. Feeling the mana inside the body, controlling the flow, outputting it outside the body, exerting control, and adding spells and willpower. I underwent the training that is typically conducted. There are no shortcuts to mastering the basics, and there shouldn't be." This sentiment bore striking resemblance to Merlin's philosophy. While Merlin possessed profound insight into mana and an innovative approach, his training methodologies were orthodox. He even adhered to self-directed learning, merely providing guidance and objectives to students, allowing their progress to hinge predominantly on individual endeavors, a traditional approach. In contemporary times, this methodology has somewhat waned, differing notably from present Magic Tower education. Nonetheless, Kevin refrained from grievances. The outcomes were assured due to its traditional nature. "That's quite impressive for that." Test Subject 162. "Your level of mana is impressive, but that salamander. It's just the result of my effort and talent." Kevin asserted confidently, for this assertion was accurate. Particularly, the elemental magic he had acquired to bridge the gap with Merlin was undeniably a product of Kevin's diligent pursuits following adulthood. Although elemental magic might bear semblance to regular magic, it fundamentally diverged, yielding results that transcended imagination. "I'm proving it now," Kevin ruminated as he stood in for the injured Philip and Tilda, who struggled in the battle of control. Without the assistance of the salamander, his endurance would likely have wavered. Even though life magic didn't align directly with combat-oriented disciplines like elemental or pure magic, Theodore's amplified physical and magical capabilities were formidable. "Talent and effort, huh? You talk quite convincingly for a red man. Like a real wizard. You're arrogant, but I like you. You're impressive. But then again, if you're taking someone who killed your parents and siblings as your master, you need to have that kind of thick skin." Theodore delved into Kevin's history, rendering a commendation intertwined with jest. While acknowledging Kevin's accomplishments as a wizard, he concurrently confined and diminished him, very much a mannerism befitting a wizard. Terence, Philip, and Tilda directed disappointed gazes at Kevin, yet his composure exceeded their expectations. In truth, his actions aligned with reality. For the sake of survival and vengeance, he had adopted his enemy as his master. "Actually, I'm rather disappointed," Kevin remarked, his neck relaxing from its tense stance as he refrained from reacting to the provocation. He simulated indifference. "Disappointed? Yes. I was a little scared when you said you were once my master's rival, but it turned out to be easier than I thought." Amidst the grime and soot garnered from his battle with Theodore, Kevin's voice bore a trace of provocation. While unmistakably a display of bravado, this was a sentiment Theodore, known for his pronounced pride, could not disregard. "How dare you dash?" "Well, it's only natural. In the old days, you might have been able to keep up with my master, but now my master is an archiver and you are, well, you." Ah, now I understand. Kevin paused mid-sentence, his murmur akin to a realization dawning. So that's why you did this. It's because of your inferiority complex towards my master. Despite approaching an age where you could die at any time, you still can't reach my master's level, so you got impatient and did this? Is that right? It's the nature of the life school to steal from others and wear it on yourself, isn't it? There was no other way, was there? Kevin blended provocation with speculation in his words. Curiously, his words held an element of accuracy. While the central terminology eluded him, the context was fitting. Consequently, Theodore's demeanor, initially scornful towards Kevin, gradually solidified. Nothing stings quite like the truth. Theodore's gaze bore into Kevin, met unflinchingly by Kevin's wordless glare. Philip and Tilda, both nursing injuries, alongside Terence, maintained tense postures. At the apex of the silence, Theodore struck the ground, birthing colossal serpents crafted from earth. Formed of both mana and wool, these serpents possessed both intricacy and might. In response, Kevin summoned Salamander for aid, conjuring multiple fire dragons. Boom! Crash! Precisely when Theodore's serpents and Kevin's fire dragons teetered on the cusp of clashing, gargantuan iron spheres akin to wrecking balls hurtled from a distance, colliding with the earth serpents. These projectiles were hurled by Philip, stationed at Kevin's left rear, providing support. Amidst the cacophony of structures crumbling, a portion of the serpents succumbed, and Kevin seized the opportune moment, directing his fire dragons to assail Theodore's serpents. The fire dragons roared, their voices amalgamating the growls of untamed beasts and the crackle of wildfire. They soared diverse trajectories, gnawing into and immolating the earth serpents. Theodore, the sorcerer, similarly became their target. The confluence of fire dragons' firepower appeared to overwhelm Theodore. In retaliation, he hurled colossal icebergs, mud torrents, and lances of mana, countering the fire dragons. Of the 5 fire dragons, 3 sported perforations in their heads, necks, and torsos, exuding magma-esque blood. Yet, their distinctive strength, life force, and sheer numbers sustained them, enkindling their surroundings. Gradually, they exerted pressure, herding Theodore into a solitary point. Fwoosh, fwoosh, fwoosh. As Theodore's mobility constricted, Kevin infused his legs with mana, springing forth through a burst of fire magic that propelled him skyward. With the heavens under Kevin's dominion, Philip dispatched another colossal iron ball. Employing his untamed mana, Kevin suspended the iron sphere mid-air, descending upon it. Through the Agni school of fire magic, he channeled searing heat into the iron mass, causing it to liquefy like molten metal in an instant. Employing the Gaia school of magic, he manipulated the molten iron into the likeness of a dragon, embedding a salamander within. The sculpture, a fusion of intense heat and iron, appeared to stir to life as the salamander entered, pouncing at Theodore with unprecedented intensity and aggression, its fangs bared. Had it collided head-on, even the formidable Theodore would have struggled to emerge unscathed. Dragon skin. Grasping evasion as unfeasible, Theodore invoked a spell. An immense surge of mana erupted from Theodore's form, manifesting a dynamic spell that seemed to possess life force. Dragon-scale-esque armor enveloped him, endowing absolute fire resistance. This armor even withstood the scorching heat capable of igniting the very earth below. The method through which Theodore harnessed this unique magic inherent to dragon lineage, presumed extinct, remained a perplexity. Could it be that he had somehow located this extinct bloodline and infused it within himself? Should such a hypothesis hold truth, the feat was both awe-inspiring and audacious. To err on the side of caution, Kevin employed his Warlock's eyes, honing in on Theodore's life force and emotions. Though significant concentration was requisite, the present circumstances rendered the skill impeccably suitable. Astoundingly, Theodore emerged unscathed amidst flames so intense they bordered on the unbearable. Almost as if he were assessing Kevin. Evidently, Theodore continued to regard him as an experimental subject or mere component. Well, this is troubling. A frigid ire welled within Kevin, manifesting as mana eruption from his frame. He assimilated the enveloping flames, coalescing them into armor that cloaked him. Yet, Kevin's endeavors didn't conclude there. He sought augmentation of the flame armor via the salamander. Consequently, Kevin fabricated a dragon armor distinct from Theodore's. Not done yet. Exerting all available mana to stabilize the fire dragon armor, Kevin ruminated. This armor held the vigor of a volcano, yet its stability faltered, complicating control. It wasn't yet primed for actual combat. Unsurprisingly, Theodore discerned this fact, poised to assail Kevin at this juncture. Just as the confrontation was poised to escalate, Terence, positioned in the rear for support, unleashed a barrage of magical ordnance in Theodore's direction, extending aid to Kevin. Simultaneously, Tilda erected a colossal ice barrier and wall to buy valuable seconds. Due to the combined intervention of Terence and Tilda, Kevin seized a brief yet invaluable reprieve. Within this narrow temporal window, he marginally harnessed dominion over the fire dragon armor. Employing its formidable firepower as propulsion, he endeavored to narrow the gap, advancing directly towards Theodore. A resounding boom punctuated the air as Theodore conjured a magical barrier to neutralize Terence's artillery-like mana, simultaneously wielding control over Tilda's ice sorcery to forge an ice spear. Swiftly, he launched this projectile toward Kevin. The ice spear cleaved through the atmosphere with such swiftness it couldn't be tracked with the naked eye. Yet, Kevin nimbly evaded it through the characteristic agility of a red man, progressing unswervingly. Theodore, compelled to bridge the distance rapidly, parried Philip, Tilda, and Terence's encroachments, intercepting their assaults whilst propelling a colossal electric orb skyward. Zeus. The thunderbolt Theodore summoned surged within the yellow electric mass, indiscriminately assaulting all animate entities within its radius, excepting the sorcerer himself. Zzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzz boom. Bang. Sizzle. Sizzle kurung. The electric mass blazed fiercely, discharging streaks of lightning. Each lightning bolt wielded substantial force, even constituting mortal threats for Grand Master and One Master. Inevitably, the formation upheld by Philip, Tilda, and Terence, aimed at restraining Theodore, fractured, compelling them to adopt defensive stances. However, Kevin allocated scant consideration to these peripheral disruptions, channeling his energy to breach Theodore's defenses and contract the spatial interval between them. He adroitly evaded lightning-swift ice spears, incinerated the ground's attempts at ensnaring him, and countered plummeting bolts of electricity with flames, tenaciously persisting. After skillfully eluding and dodging numerous incantations, Kevin ultimately succeeded in approximating Theodore within a mere 10 paces. In this state, he triggered the Fire Dragon armor's detonation. Fire Dragon ascends. A draconian conflagration engulfed the vicinity, tinging the surroundings with crimson hues, and emanating an overwhelming torrent of flames and heat as it ascended toward the heavens. An all-encompassing surge of scorching heat propagated akin to a tidal wave, disintegrating all in its radius to ash. This compelled Philip, Tilda, and Terence, proficient in mana manipulation, to conjure a protective barrier. Yet, the definitive demonstration of Fire Dragon's potency emanated from the extinguished Zeus, Theodore's own mana, and the orifice rent within the enshrouding mist barrier. Ordinarily suffused with spatial mana, this mist sidestepped most physical forces. Nevertheless, Kevin sundered the barrier through sheer dominance. Although Theodore remained unscathed by the conflagration. Thunk. Kevin discerned a bone spear impaling his shoulder. Theodore had extracted his own bone to forge a spear for impalement. A technique straying closer to black magic than conventional magic. Evoking associations with body modification, transplant surgeries, and seemingly an innovative life school methodology. Quite impressive magic. Test Subject 162. Clad in dragon armor, Theodore contorted the hand grasping the bone spear, coercing Kevin into a kneel. But my magic, just as special as elemental magic, cannot be hurt simply by increasing firepower. It was very red man-like of you, but foolish. Ugh. So you didn't kill me just to explain that? Well, there's that too. I want to put you to good use and teach you some manners. Theodore rotated his hand, intensifying pressure upon Kevin's wound. Suppressing a scream, Kevin ruminated. Exploiting him? He held intrigue regarding this utilization. The life school wasn't renowned for its communicativeness concerning such intentions. How foolish. If you let me live, you'll regret it. You overestimate yourself. Test Subject 162. Do you think you can beat me just by using a single elemental spirit? It's not just one. What? It's not just one. Consider it an honor to be my opponent. It wasn't prepared for someone like you. Kevin channeled his mana toward his injured shoulder, suppressing anguish, seizing Theodore's spear. An extraordinary occurrence transpired in this moment. Flash. Something descended through the rift in the sky Kevin had earlier sundered, bathing the environs shared by Kevin and Theodore in pure white. Colors evaporated, swiftly followed by sound and form, as though erased by an all-encompassing eraser. After a fleeting interlude, Theodore realized a colossal lightning bolt had struck. Crackling boom. A colossal lightning bolt cleaved the air, targeting the expanse directly above Kevin and Theodore. The wizard's dragon scale-like armor, constituted from mana, proved impotent against this onslaught. Theodore incurred severe burns across his entirety. Inevitable, really. The lightning was no ordinary force, it carried the essence of the Thunderbird spirit. This occurrence ensured Kevin, also subjected to the lightning's impact, emerged unscathed. Elementals exhibited precise targeting endowed with a potency surpassing conventional magic. Tzzzzzzzz. The conflagration-stricken Theodore, his frame seared, enacted a spell to sculpt a mechanical hand from magical particles, fostering self-healing. His voice quivered marginally. Can you use two types of elementals? Test Subject 162. Of course, just like this. Kevin melded mana with his punctured shoulder, retorted, and promptly an object plummeted anew through the aperture rent in the firmament. It was the same fire dragon that had ascended previously. Fire dragon descends. Salamander-infused flames plummeted to earth, compacted then erupted in a cataclysmic detonation. This upheaval obliterated all in proximity, including the mist barrier encircling the vicinity. Chapter 334. The fire dragon, which had ascended into the sky, retraced its path through the hole it had created. It followed the command of the spellcaster and descended upon the ground. The vicinity, previously illuminated by lightning accompanied by the cries of thunderbirds, had now transformed into a vivid red hue, possessing the power to scorch even lifeless entities. It obliterated everything except for the spellcaster and his companions. Korwarwarwarwaralalalalalalan. A deafening roar akin to a wild beast's resounded, intertwining with the crackling of a raging wildfire. The boulders and remnants of the hotel that had been strewn about were engulfed in flames, leaving no trace behind. The land itself had shed its original color and characteristics, becoming an even more desolate sight than a barren wasteland. However, this was not the sole outcome of the event. Even the enigmatic fog barrier, seemingly impervious to collapse, began to warp amidst the explosion, flames, and searing heat brought forth by the fire dragon. Ultimately, it succumbed and crumbled. Despite the presence of spatial magic, capable of defying most physical constraints, an overwhelming force that defied all logic had disrupted this very law. Within these flames that defied rationality, survival appeared inconceivable. Nevertheless, one individual had defied the odds. Monster, Kevin thought, his gaze fixed upon Theodore. Despite being charred like coal, Theodore endured, sustained by an unending wellspring of mana and an uncanny resilience that transcended reality. The protective enchantment known as dragon skin had shattered irreparably, leaving Theodore bereft of its shield. Regardless, Theodore clung to his lifeline, recuperating from the damage in real time through his extraordinary constitution, immense mana, and curative energies. The situation was dire. The entirety of his available mana had been depleted in this devastating assault. Instinctively, Kevin recognized the impending defeat that loomed over him. If he were to survive this encounter, Theodore would inevitably mend his injuries with his cockroach-like regenerative prowess. Meanwhile, Kevin, having expended his mana reserves, would be defenseless and doomed. The culmination had arrived, with victory and defeat hanging in the balance. Embracing this realization, Kevin harnessed his flagging mana, striving to regain command over the flames. He interlocked his arms and pulled his elbows taut with every ounce of strength he possessed. The flames, hitherto rampantly spreading, arrested their indiscriminate advance, converging at the epicenter to channel their might. Their intent, to reduce Theodore Brandt, the Grand Master of Life School and venerable figure of the Magic Tower, to ashes. Whoosh! A torrent of excessive magical energy, mastery pushed to its brink, the toll of prolonged combat, all these factors conspired, triggering alarms akin to an overburdened engine within Kevin's physique. Temple and forehead veins swelled, as his eyes and nose expelled an abnormal rush of searing blood. Physical limits breached. Yet, amidst this struggle, a frigid voice laden with scorn pierced the air, mocking Kevin's endeavor. Merlin. I'm really envious. With a swish, Theodore elevated his hand amidst the lingering flames, their residual power capable of sundering barriers. Kevin's flames found themselves sundered, swiftly nullified. Really a monster, huh? Kevin muttered, fixated on Theodore's hand, an appendage grown colossal, reminiscent of a giant's. More astounding still was that this wasn't mere enlargement, it appeared comprised of myriad hands, possibly numbering in the hundreds or thousands. The bone spear unveiled earlier seemed to harbor an affinity for black magic, rather than the life magic Kevin was acquainted with. Granted, life magic engaged with dark arts, but this was an entirely distinct league. More astonishing yet was the sheer number of entities Theodore had seemingly integrated into his aged frame. The massive arms components alone numbered seemingly hundreds. Huh! Before Kevin could even marshal his thoughts, Theodore swung his gargantuan arm, endeavoring to obliterate Kevin. Much like swatting a mosquito. Kevin's attempt to evade was thwarted by the earlier strain on his body, leaving him immobile and powerless, unable even to coordinate the movement of his legs. At the brink of collapse, a sudden intervention emerged. Ice materialized beneath Kevin's feet, whisking him away from imminent danger. Quia! As the colossal hand slammed the earth, seismic tremors propagated, fracturing the ground akin to a brittle biscuit. Following the providential ice's lead, Kevin locked eyes with Tilda, a practitioner of ice magic. How pathetic. You're saving the inferior species that turned your own son into a cripple. Do you think Tilda is such a fool that she can't tell right from wrong? Just as Theodore readied to launch another assault with his gargantuan arm, Philip descended from above and raised his voice. He plunged a colossal sword into Theodore's hand, pinning it. No more attacks like this. Bang. Before Theodore's words could find conclusion, a siege mana cannon discharged, squarely striking Theodore's visage. An explosive impact rocked Theodore's head. Philip, retrieving an axe from his arsenal, magnified its dimensions and suffused it with mana, instantly sundering Theodore's massive arm. Terence! Philip's cry was swiftly heeded by Terence, who had accompanied Kevin to reinforce Philip. Infusing his form with the entirety of his mana, Terence advanced toward Theodore, his fist poised. Crash! Drawing on his credentials as a former martial arts boxing champion, Terence's punch transcended the mundane, obliterating flesh and fracturing bone. Terence unleashed a barrage of blows, an onslaught as swift as it was potent, nearly creating the illusion of a multitude of fists. Bang! 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 A testament to honed aptitude and rigorous training. Yet, Theodore was his adversary. Clash! Boom! Even under duress, Theodore regenerated his severed limb, parrying Terence's punches with his own fists, each encased in bone blades. Miraculously, he adapted to a boxing stance despite lacking formal training, skillfully blocking and retaliating, shattering Terence's rhythm. A stratagem manifesting precision and overpowering might. Terence's defenses crumbled, confronting a fleeting brush with mortality. Bone blades sprouted from Theodore's fists. Slash! As the bone blade fist hurtled for Terence's countenance, Philip surged forth, deflecting the strike with his saber. Snap out of it! With an arm missing, bleeding profusely, and weary from prolonged battle, Philip bellowed with the indomitable spirit emblematic of the Roar lineage. Rallying to Philip's call, Terence, haunted by the specter of his own demise, reclaimed his valor, his fist homing in on Theodore's critical juncture. Thud! Theodore was propelled backward, a resonance akin to a fractured sternum resounding. Unyielding, Philip maintained his vigilance, cleaving his saber toward Theodore's neck. Though the neck proved tenacious, resilience couldn't defy the inevitability of a lethal wound. Unfazed, Theodore commenced his regenerative response, rendering the injury to mere memory. Press on. Yes. Philip and Terence synchronized their efforts, combining sword and fist to repel the relentless advance of Theodore. Their peak physical prowess, coupled with their mana-infused capabilities, transformed their close-quarters assault into a tempest. It roared with such swiftness and ferocity that it threatened not only Theodore but also those watching from the sidelines. Directly confronting the onslaught, Theodore didn't merely endure but gradually initiated his own counter. Dual bone spears occupied his grasp, implements that resounded in a cacophony. Clang! Clank! Boom! Bang! Kaboom! Crash. Clash. The resonant clamor signified Terence's fists and Philip's weapons colliding with Theodore's bone spears, rippling shock waves through the arena. As the clash persisted, the tide inexorably shifted in Theodore's favor. His bone spears wielded with dexterity, Theodore deftly swiped at Philip and Terence, exerting force that propelled them backward. Thump. Predicting their maneuvers, Theodore accurately struck the shoulders of both Philip and Kevin. Though not deeply wounding, the blows underscored the skills disparity between the combatants. In an exchanged glance, Philip and Terence instinctively distanced themselves, aware of the peril of direct engagement with Theodore. Yet, Theodore vanished for a fleeting instant, swiftly converging on both Philip and Terence, nullifying their strategic maneuvering. The method was unassuming, sheer speed. The enigma lay in how he attained an unattainable velocity, a puzzle soon unraveled. Theodore's lower limbs had undergone a metamorphosis into a hybrid blend of equine and carnivorous attributes. This hybrid form conferred a swiftness impossible for human legs, allowing Theodore to navigate Tilda's icy terrain without slip. Rendered inhuman, Theodore overwhelmed Philip and Terence, his gaze then pivoting to Kevin and Tilda. Thud 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 thud. Bolting forth at inconceivable speed, Theodore set the ground quaking, his movement exceeding naked eye perception. Against the strain, Kevin forced his battered frame upright and conjured a stone spear in defense, but Theodore's bone spear obliterated it effortlessly. In the precipice of that fleeting moment, with the chasm between the tip of Theodore's bone spear and Kevin's eye paper thin, Theodore abruptly stilled. One hand pressed to his ear. From the recesses of his auditory channel, an elusive, incomprehensible static reverberated. "What did you say?" "Fine." "Understood." Theodore suspended his assault, conversing with the cryptic static that permeated his ear, then withdrew. "You're lucky." Test Subject 162. Theodore cast a gaze upon the drained, prostrate Kevin. Without further contemplation, he birthed a portal and transitioned through it with an air of nonchalance. In the aftermath of Theodore's departure, Kevin, who had narrowly eluded the clutches of demise, slumped, his tension finally uncoiling. Initially, relief surged within him, survival attained. Yet, a subsequent wave of emotions surged: fury, humiliation, despondency. A lifetime of training converged upon this aspiration, this quest for revenge. Notable strides in elemental magic, an accomplishment to be revered, yet here he stood. If Theodore proved an insurmountable challenge, what hope lay in facing Merlin? In this realization, Kevin perceived the immense chasm still separating him from his ambition. Why did he run away? Tilda, typically as aloof as frost, mused aloud. Perplexed, Kevin echoed her bewilderment. The notion of relinquishing a triumph already secured appeared absurd. Yet, it refrained from deserving mockery as a reckless folly. What happened? Amid Kevin's contemplations, a familiar voice resonated from a distance. It was none other than Oliver, accompanied by Yareli and over 20 wizards. They navigated the remnants of the shattered fog barrier. "What happened to you?" Kevin inquired, eyeing Oliver, who had swapped his tonfa for a quarterstaff. Oliver responded, "Well, a bit of this and that. I'm going crazy." "Really?" Recumbent upon a blanket, Kevin uttered his thoughts. Reasons abounded: the treachery of the School of Life magic against the magic tower, his ensnarement within the lingering fog, and the brush with demise at Theodore's hands. Any one of these would suffice to incite his descent into madness. Yet, Oliver's arrival furnished an even more perplexing revelation. Oliver had been exposed. unmasked by both the School of Life Magic and Yareli. Even more astonishing, Oliver, implicated as the culprit, embraced the revelation. He unearthed concealed supplies, blankets, chairs, makeshift bedding, medicine, and even canned soup, dispensing assistance to everyone, including Kevin. Since exposure was inevitable, Oliver reasoned, he might as well lend aid where he could. What compounded the absurdity was the muted acquiescence of all, apparently too drained to contest Oliver's benevolence. "I'm really going crazy." Kevin, too astounded for words, repeated his sentiment. He then employed his magic to heat the canned soup within his mug, proceeding to imbibe it. The mug was a reasonably expensive one, infused with magical conductivity, and offering from Oliver as well. "I'm sorry, Professor. I had no choice but to be discovered when Mr. Carl suddenly revealed my identity." Approaching Kevin's side, Oliver, having distributed canned soup, medicine, and potions, offered his apology anew. Initially, he had denied the accusations, Oliver explained, but succumbed to exposure upon mention of the motel incident. The motel incident, Kevin was intimately acquainted with the details. His mentor, Merlin, had recounted them personally. Given this revelation, Kevin was too bewildered and frustrated to voice his resentment. After a moment's contemplation, Kevin voiced his thoughts. "First of all, hey, Zenon." "Dave." Interrupting Kevin, Philip, seated opposite, called out to Oliver. Addressing him by his name as a personal assistant to a magic tower professor, as well as by his Landa alias as a solver. Oliver turned, responding, "Yes, General Philip." A dialogue commenced, unfolding between the esteemed honorary Grand Master of the Magic Tower and the enigmatic Warlock. All eyes converged on them. Observers scrutinized their interaction, a convergence of the Warlock within the guise of a Magic Tower employee. Philip interjected, "Do you have any alcohol or cigarettes?" "I need both." "Yes, I have both." "Just a moment." Devoid of hesitation, Oliver responded naturally, accommodating the peculiar entreaty. He procured 2 containers from the array Big Mouth had presented. One contained an array of cigarettes found in Landa, encompassing cigars and various varieties. The other held an assortment of magical and conventional spirits. Clang! The harmonious resonance of clinking bottles echoed. "There are various types of cigarettes, including cigars, and there are both ordinary liquor and magic wine. I've brought the major brands. Do you have any specific preferences?" Oliver delivered his words with an air of normalcy. Witnessing this, Philip, who had relinquished an arm, chuckled and remarked, "Kevin, you've really chosen a great employee." Chapter 335. Bang! Oliver extended a cigar to Philip before channeling his mana into his fingertips, conjuring a flame. Using the flame Oliver had created, Philip ignited the cigar and took several deliberate puffs. "Ah, thanks." Philip exhaled a plume of smoke and nodded in acknowledgement. Oliver made a nonchalant gesture and proceeded to pour a measure of alcohol into his glass. Observing this, Philip nodded, swiftly taking the alcohol bottle from Oliver's grasp. By harnessing his mana, he cooled the bottle before swiftly consuming its contents. Despite the bottle's substantial size, it appeared rather modest in Philip's hands, given his towering height of over 2 meters. "Ha! Thanks again, really. I think I'll be able to live now. I didn't expect you to be carrying a whole crate of alcohol." Philip gazed at a container brimming with cigarettes and alcohol. "Thanks to the stories shared by other staff at the tower, I was able to bring these along," Oliver responded. What kind of stories led you to carry around alcohol and cigarettes like this? For daily updates, read at snacknovel.world. I was told that bringing luxury goods like alcohol and cigarettes is the first step in socializing. This way, I can accommodate the preferences of professors and people around me. Ha 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 dash. This guy is absolutely amazing. Philip, who had lost an arm and was now one-armed, burst into hearty laughter, pointing at Oliver with his finger. Indeed, it wasn't unexpected for him to find amusement. Even Philip, who struggled with the mist barrier, found it amusing that Oliver, a skillful wizard capable of manipulating and utilizing it, assumed the role of a typical tower staff member, albeit an exceptionally capable one. The imbalance was unprecedented, enough to induce laughter in anyone. Is this something to laugh about now? Amidst Philip's uproarious laughter, a voice interjected with a crack. The speaker was a wizard from the Life School faction, who had been abducted, narrowly escaped death, and now grappled with tumultuous emotions. The day had been eventful. A warlock has infiltrated the tower by concealing his identity. This is a very unfortunate incident, the wizard declared, his face reddening. And he was not mistaken. The tower stood as a grand establishment founded by wizards of various factions to safeguard their rights and privileges. It was a realm that commenced with wizards and culminated with wizards. Yet now, a practitioner of black magic had breached the tower's defenses by deceiving everyone. Moreover, this warlock had gained infamy in Landa. It was an extraordinary incident, to say the least. An incident that warranted retribution, not solely for the involved parties, but for the tower itself. Nevertheless, the very individuals who should have exhibited the strongest reactions, tower leaders Philip and Tilda, displayed minimal response. An undeniable tension pervaded the atmosphere. Attempting to highlight the situation, the wizard cried out once more. "General Philip! Quiet!" Amidst the conflicting responses, a voice intervened, laced with both scorn and irritation. It was none other than Kevin. Seated on a blanket, he opened a mana-heated can of soup and spoke. "What right do you have to raise your voice in this situation? You're the one who was captured without any response to this situation, saved by a student, and barely survived." Kevin spoke candidly, his disdain evident. The truth stung. Indeed, the wizard's bluster rapidly deflated. Wizards held great regard for outcomes and appearances. Of course, the captured wizards, the speaker included, possessed justifications to defend themselves. An unidentifiable dense mist, a coordinated assault, blood magic surpassing most spells, it would have been peculiar if they hadn't been subdued. Yet the captured wizards refrained from vocalizing these explanations. All except one. "Shut up, Red Man." As Kevin endeavored to take command of the situation, a fellow wizard intervened. He, too, was a wizard who had been rescued, displaying intense animosity towards Kevin. "How dare you open your mouth? It's you who brought that filthy warlock into the sacred tower, isn't it?" The intervening wizard's words held truth, but the timing was deplorable. "I've felt it since last semester, but the tower's standards have really fallen. Even doing stupid things like spitting on their own face. What? Take a look at who was saved by that filthy warlock's help, who is wearing a blanket given by that filthy warlock, and who is drinking the potion and canned soup provided by that filthy warlock." Kevin's voice was now tinged with genuine aversion and disgust. From Kevin's perspective, censuring Oliver at this moment was tantamount to tarnishing his own reputation. Moreover, it constituted an affront to Philip and Tilda, who occupied esteemed positions within the Magic Tower hierarchy. All present had availed themselves of the blankets and remedies supplied by Oliver, and none had abstained from the healing potions and canned soups he had offered. Regardless of the wizard's predisposition towards supremacy, it was only natural for them to recoil at the notion of disparaging Oliver in such circumstances. The atmosphere was thick with scorn and disdain. In that instant, Philip, raising his sole remaining hand, pacified the agitated assembly. "Everyone, please, calm down. Kevin, you too." Kevin reluctantly sealed his lips at Philip's instruction. Observing this, Philip addressed the other wizards. "Enough, all of you. But, General Philip, this is dash. I said that's enough." Philip's voice was resolute and commanding, distinct from the gentle tone he had employed earlier. Although his voice lacked any magical influence, it resonated with such gravitas that it instinctively subdued those who heard it. Having witnessed many soldiers in action, Oliver acknowledged that Philip occupied a distinct echelon. With the situation under control, Philip spoke anew. "Do you think I'm not aware of the seriousness of this situation? No, that's not it. Or do you think that because I hold the honorary title of Grand Master, I'm indifferent to the affairs of the Magic Tower? No, that's not it either, certainly not." The wizards who had questioned Oliver were now faltering, their heads bowed in submission, akin to chastised children. After all, Philip was virtually the Grand Master of the School of Pure Magic, and his title extended beyond mere honorifics. He held this distinction solely because he already occupied a high-ranking military post, nothing more, nothing less. The sole individual here with comparable authority was Tilda. As the air grew chillier and Philip's leadership asserted itself, he spoke anew, taking a swig from a container of chilled spirits. "Under normal circumstances, we would address your concerns immediately, but not now. The School of Life Magic, which was part of the Magic Tower, has committed an act of betrayal that goes beyond that." No one dared to protest. After all, it was an undeniable truth. Kevin's actions held significance, no doubt, but they pertained to an individual matter. In contrast, the betrayal by the School of Life Magic constituted an institutional issue, its magnitude beyond comparison. This betrayal had the potential to severely undermine the Magic Tower's reputation, influence, and authority, perhaps even more, given that it was orchestrated by Theodore, who commanded considerable respect within the Magic Tower. Depending on circumstances, the very existence of the Magic Tower could hang in the balance. That's the thing. We can address Kevin's issue later, but there is no later for the betrayal of the School of Life Magic. So, let's prioritize wisely, as befits wizards. But isn't this a matter of trust? Despite Philip's words, the wizards remained apprehensive of Oliver. Their reaction was fueled by hysteria, driven more by emotions than rationality. Confronted with overwhelming circumstances and an unacceptable reality, their primary urge was to vent their frustrations. In that instant, someone interjected with rationality, transcending emotion. "May I say something?" The individual who spoke was Yareli, the Magic Tower student who had assisted in the rescue alongside Oliver, and also happened to be one Master Tilda's granddaughter. Yareli had already carved out a reputation within the tower. Thanks to her direct contributions to the rescue efforts, she held a significant influence here. To be honest, I was quite taken aback when I found out that Dave had hidden his identity, but apart from that, I don't see any reason not to trust him right now, she remarked. Philip inquired, "Why do you think that?" "If he had any ulterior motives, he wouldn't have helped us when his true identity was revealed," Yareli responded, recollecting how Oliver had rescued her from blood magic and employed his formidable mana to elevate the entire basement to safety. In truth, if not for Oliver's intervention, the majority of the wizards present, herself included, would have struggled to escape unscathed. Numerous questions and discussions swirled in her mind, but Yareli opted to base her judgment of Oliver on his tangible actions and the evidence before her, choosing to place her trust in him. "I'll vote for that too," Terence chimed in, downing a bottle of alcohol similar to Philip. "Being a warlock, honestly, I don't like it either, but isn't this not the time to argue about that? After all, he's the only one here who can manipulate that cursed fog," Terence asserted, gesturing toward the fog that was slowly encroaching upon them once more. The mist that Kevin had dispersed through his spirit magic and fire magic was gradually reclaiming its presence. "So we have to consider him on our side, whether we like it or not." "No offense," Terence added, offering an apologetic glance. "It's okay," Oliver replied. Aware of the wizard's animosity and aversion to black magic, Oliver remained unfazed. Furthermore, the prevailing circumstances seemed relatively favorable. The Grand Master and the Tower's Master, along with a highly esteemed student, were advocating for him, were they not? While he couldn't predict the future with certainty, for the time being, it appeared unlikely that he would be embroiled in any trouble. This was promising news. There were matters he wished to address in the present moment. However, the wizards who still harbored doubts about Oliver turned to Yareli's grandmother and one master of the Scatty school, Tilda, as if seeking guidance. Tilda addressed the divided assembly of wizards. "Impersonating someone and getting a job at the tower under false pretenses is a serious crime. It undermines the tower's security, safety, and trust. Even more so if it's a warlock." Oliver nodded in concurrence. She spoke the truth. However, as General Philip said, that's not the most important issue right now. The life school has betrayed us. In the long term, it's a matter of the tower's future, and in the short term, it's a matter of our lives. Let's put aside small matters for now. Master Kevin. Tilda summoned Kevin, addressing him with respect and courtesy, unlike the other wizards. "Yes, one Master Tilda." Kevin responded. "Do you trust this warlock, Dave?" Her inquiry pertained to his endorsement of Oliver's reliability. Kevin regarded Oliver and answered, "Absolutely." Bang. The moment he heard the response, Philip slammed his hand onto the floor, capturing everyone's attention. "Well, that settles it. Let's move on to the next issue. The life school. If anyone has seen or heard anything, speak up." "There might be some useful information," Philip announced in a seemingly jovial manner, despite the issue's gravity. Understanding the facts is imperative to respond effectively. As the assembly hesitated, the sole warlock present, Oliver, raised his hand and spoke with composure, as though the preceding events hadn't occurred. "I'm not sure, but it seems like the life school is preparing for some big ritual or surgery right now. To be continued."